Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. Hey, folks, if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, you're in the right spot. Hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you'll get all things DutyRon. And wait a minute, what are you doing over there, Ed Wallace? When we go when we go live or upload another video. Hey, tonight it's no laughing matter. We're going to jump into Savanah Soto Matthew Guerra perpetrators that were taken into custody. I don't even like to call them humans. These are subhumans. The shocking probable cause affidavit dropped today. I told you guys last night, Ed and I, when we were live, we said it, that today we would have more details. And heck, the details in this probable cause affidavit, although it is the story that's given to us from Christopher to the investigators, it is still shocking because it gives some more details of some of the gruesome inside the car scene. And we're going to get into all of that in a minute. But as Ed and I like to say all the time, we thank you, the community, the replay viewers, the moderators, the chats, the live chatters, the replay chatters, the folks who leave us comments down below, our Patreons, the people who buy us cups of coffee. Ed, did you know we got 30 cups of coffee last night? We need it because I was up till 3 a.m. Doing this story, covering this case.
Absolutely. Can't sleep now. All that caffeine.
Yeah. So it helps to keep us awake. I just pulled a rookie move and had the volume still up on my phone. So I'm going to take care of that. We heard so much last night, Ed, late night when they did the walk, the perp walk, and they brought these two suspects out, father and son, Christopher, and maybe you can correct me on the pronunciation of that last name. Is it Preciado? Preciado? I know my language folks are going to correct me, but father and son, Ramon and Christopher, when they were brought out, we heard about some of the things that these guys are alleged to have done in the late night hours and into this morning. And, you know, innocent until proven guilty. We always have to say that. That is a given here in the United States. But once we heard this late this afternoon, they dropped that probable cause affidavit. I shared it with you, and we're going to get into it. But I want to play this little clip right here because this is going to tell some of the folks about what we got going on. And it's going to go over a brief tragic timeline. So let's take a listen, and we'll be right back to you guys.
With the arrest come new details from the investigators who have pieced together an updated timeline. All of the events, according to police, unfolding in a small neighborhood in Leon Valley, all within blocks of each other. We start at the beginning. The new arrest affidavit reveals that the murders actually happened 2 days before 18-year-old Savanah Soto and Matthew Guerra were reported missing late on December 21st, sometime before midnight. According to investigators who looked at cell phone records, Matthew Guerra had searched for Charlie Chan Drive and Cary Grant Drive, and his vehicle records show he went there. According to the father of Christopher Preciado, that is where his son attempted to buy marijuana from Guerra, and depending on who you talk to, a fight ensued. Minutes later, that Kia Optima moved to 5903 Danny K. Drive to an apartment complex parking lot, only to be joined minutes later by Ramon Preciado's Silverado pickup. Police say the surveillance video shows the truck pulling in with its lights off, and Ramon and Christopher appear to have some sort of an exchange. Then the two drive to the back of the complex. It would be another day on December 23rd that both families were so worried they called the Leon Valley Police Department. The two had not been seen for days, and Savanah had not shown up for her appointment to deliver her baby. Fast forward 3 more days to the day after Christmas. That's when Leon Valley PD was tipped off that Guerra's car was in that apartment parking lot, and the 2 corpses of the would-be parents were found, both with gunshot wounds to their heads. 7 days later, police act on cell phone tracking information, and they think they've solved the mystery. Just last night, blocks away from the crime scene at that same Charlie Chan Drive and Cary Grant Drive area, Ramon Preciado was confronted by police, who they say quickly admitted to his involvement and that of his son.
Keep up to date with all of San Antonio's top news, weather, and so much more by
So there you
clicking the
have
like
it.
and subscribe
So that
button.
was local San Antonio coverage. Charlie Chan Drive, just blocks away from the actual location where that Kia was dumped, Ed. And you know, what's unbelievable about what unfolded last night was while we were live, they were in the process of locking these guys up, unbeknownst to us, right? So that's the thing. It just was everything developed so quickly, and happens in these cases. But Ed, what's most important is that you and Tommy took over the show last night, and you were talking about the crime scene and evidence preservation, the vehicle and data that would be extracted from vehicles, both vehicles, and you talked also about the cell phone. That all came into play here.
Oh, absolutely. The cell phone, it was critical that they recovered her cell phone from the car, and they brought it to their tech people, as well as the Secret Service jumped in and assisted in retrieving data from the cell phone. And it appears that the data they retrieved was a Google search of the suspect's address where they were going to meet for the drug deal. And apparently, it was a Google search and Google directions or to the suspect's location that they were able to retrieve. And then the detectives went and visited that location and surveilled it and found the Chevy truck, and then went and knocked on the door. And the father answered the door, and to his surprise, he said to them, "I know why you're here."
Yeah, he kind of like gave up. His hands were up, and they cooperated, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the thing of it is that we weren't dealing with a career criminal when we talk about his son, Christopher. He had no arrest history. I was almost going to say collar history, and I don't want to throw everybody off in the chat, but he had no arrest history. And
right, but that doesn't mean he wasn't a criminal. He just never got caught.
Never got caught. You took the words right out of my mouth. But the thing of it is that he couldn't have been too busy, because most criminals, they make those mistakes and they get caught up if they're robbing people, if they're doing, low-level crimes and so forth. But this was, in my mind, when I heard it was a deal for marijuana, it kind of just made me think this kid is not only full of shit and is lying to these guys, that there was that struggle that ensued, and
oh yeah, he made self-serving statements.
Savanah took a shot to the back of the head, and then he continued that. We're going to read the probable cause affidavit. We'll skim over it. But he said that, and then after she was shot, he continued the fight with Matthew, and then all of a sudden he was shot in the back of the head. But as we know, it was a contact shot, right? So if he was just struggling with them, what did he do? Struggle and pointed at the back of his head. So the whole story is hogwash.
Yeah, and the swearing detective here that swore out the affidavit for the warrant for the arrest of these two individuals states in his findings that the story was inconsistent with the forensic evidence. And there's no doubt in my mind that is in fact the case, because he made self-serving statements to be seen in the best light possible. He's trying to start a self-defense defense.
Right.
Okay.
He's thinking ahead. And I'm sure that him and his father had a conversation, and the dad, albeit not a career criminal, he's had a couple of collars under his belt. Let's just go quickly, because the super chats fly by and I don't want to miss them. Jeff, thank you for the super chat. He says, DutyRon and Ed, Spidey Sense professionals. Thank you, Jeff, and the missus, the better half. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. The memberships, we really love and respect the guys and girls who take that extra step and become members. So thank you for being a member. I appreciate that. So, Eve O is in the chat, and I saw this, just jumps right out at me, because this is a commonly repeated question. Why was Guerra back in the back seat? And I know we talked about this on the phone, but in that probable cause affidavit, the arrest affidavit, it talked about there was an indicator, and I'll let you use the specific terms, about evidence that showed that he was dragged. So do you want to talk a little bit about that in the forensic side?
Yeah, that's in the affidavit for the arrest warrant, the lead detective makes mention of the forensic evidence shows that the Mr. Guerra was potentially dragged on his location, and there was some kind of blood transfer, maybe some what's called contact transfer to the exterior of the vehicle, where he was dragged and placed in the back of the vehicle.
Could that been, and I don't mean to cut you off in your mid-thought, but could that have been the spots where we were highlighting when you and Tommy were highlighting on the side of the car, or is that something different?
I didn't see blood there on the side of the car. It looked like some kind of contact transfer of, indicator of the side of the vehicle hitting something. Not necessarily, it didn't look like blood to me, but I would need closer examination. But this is why the interior
we didn't see the driver's side of the car. Remember, we were trying to get to that.
Right, we didn't see the driver's side, right? But this is why it's critical. The car is critical. Especially the interior is critical. Now, according to the affidavit as well, one discharge cartridge casing was recovered inside the vehicle, so that there was at least 2 shots fired. So we have to find where that other cartridge is. But if one is in the vehicle, it would tend to lean towards shooting the victim from inside the vehicle, or the gun being inside the vehicle when it was discharged. So that whole interior of that car is a vital piece of the crime scene investigation that needs to be looked at. Shooting reconstruction has to occur. You have to look at the headrest. You have to look at the headrest of the driver's seat, the headrest of the passenger seat. You have to look for signs of back spatter coming out of the entrance wounds in the direction where the shots were fired from. And then we can do, shooting reconstruction on the interior of the vehicle. Now, he says that all this stuff occurred on the sidewalk in front of his house where they got into this alleged struggle, which is all, BS. Well, you got to go there and process that scene and look at that scene and see if we can find any blood spatter, see if we can find any trace transfer evidence from the victim being dragged on the sidewalk or the grass or whatever the case may be, the street, and being placed back into the car. If we got to look at the clothing very carefully of the suspect. I mean, not the suspect, of the victim, especially the male victim that was placed in the back of the car, to see if we can find soil, grass, pollen that can be connected to the location where the suspect says the shooting occurred on the outside of the vehicle. If that doesn't exist, if that's not there, then maybe the shooting occurred inside the vehicle with him in the back seat, and shooting both the driver and occupant of the front in the head from the rear, and then he gets out and then brings the suspect to the back of the car and places him in the back seat. And that's maybe got to look at this and see, maybe the child seat was in the back, and then he took the child seat and pushed it and put it on the front.
Yeah, because we saw after we were done with our stream, we were doing some enhancements in the studio, and I believe that we were able to see in that front seat, that car seat in the front, from that overhead shot. Somebody in the chat said here, and this is a great comment from Bernie Yah. He or she says they had 5 days to get their self-serving story ready. Amen to that. And kudos to you for paying attention, and everybody else who paid attention to that. They had time to get their stories straight. But as Ed and other experts that come on this show, including myself, the evidence doesn't lie. Forensics and the science, it doesn't lie. So when you could put everything together and the pieces of the puzzle together, and that does take time. And I give a lot of credit to San Antonio PD for reaching out to the U.S. Secret Service. And people are getting confused and caught up on that, because everyone they're always used to hearing the FBI, that 3-letter word. The FBI is usually the one that people lean on. But Ed, you talked about getting training from the Secret Service and how intensive the training is with them, and you took the course. So
yeah, hold on a second. Let me see if I can't pull that up here. Hold on.
While you try to pull it up, I wanted to play just a small 1 and 51 second clip that'll give you time to pull that up.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me play this. Ed's doing some science searching right now.
New charges tonight for the father and son arrested last night for the deaths of a pregnant woman and her boyfriend. The new charges are in addition to the original charges we first told you about on KENS5.com. KENS 5 reporter Zach Briggs joins us live with the details. Zach?
Well, police allege Christopher Preciado pulled the trigger with the intent to kill Soto and Guerra, and now both father and son are locked up here at Bexar County Jail. Now, as earlier today, the Preciados face additional charges. Initially charged with capital murder, Christopher now faces charges of abuse of a corpse and alter, destroy, conceal of a corpse. As for his father, 53-year-old Ramon Preciado, he's charged with abuse of corpse and just added this afternoon, alter, destroy, conceal of a corpse. Alter, destroy, conceal of a corpse. As for his father, 53-year-old Ramon Preciado, he's charged with abuse of corpse and just added this afternoon, alter, destroy, conceal of a corpse as well. Arresting documents indicate police were able to use Soto's cell phone in that surveillance video released last week to pinpoint where the suspects lived, just blocks away from the crime scene. Detectives say Ramon answered the doors, saying he knew why they were there. Christopher and Ramon were interrogated off-site. According to the arrest affidavit, Ramon admitted to being the person leaving the truck in the surveillance video. Interacting with his son, who was in the victim's Kia.
He was not there during the commission of the murders. He was there kind of, I guess he was called afterwards to help dispose or help his son.
Now it is still unclear where exactly the killings of Savanah Soto and Matthew Guerra took place, but we do know from the DA's office that Christopher Preciado could face an additional count of capital murder, according to Texas law, for the death of the unborn child.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this, and the internet's going wild about it. You know, Ed, before you start showing what you're going to show, and I know this has to do with Army training, I wanted to say one thing here is we still do not know exactly where Soto and Guerra were killed. We do not know where this murder occurred. We can guess that potentially out in front of his house at a specific location that they met, but we know that he used Matthew used Google Maps, you know, to get him to that Charlie Chan address where they reside.
I don't think it was Matthew. It was his his baby's mom.
Yeah, so it was Shauna. Okay.
Yeah, Shauna.
All right. So what do you got, Ed? What do you got?
No, I was just saying, I was just looking it up, that in March of 1999, I went to, hold on, it just disappeared on me. I went to the
Secret Service, U.S. Secret Service training?
Yep, March of 1999. Hold on, I got it right here. The Electronic Crime Investigations course, 40 hours by the Secret Service. And they were the premier people, and we went over cell phones, we went over computers, we went over PDAs, we went over any type of electronics that you could possibly think of. So they are a premier agency that has developed a lot of protocols and procedures on how to download this information, how to safeguard the information found on computers, phones, iPads, you name it. They were one of the premier federal agencies that do this.
So it was a great thing that, you know, they reached out to the United States Secret Service, and people think, you know, Secret Service, they only do like, you know, when you pass fake money and, you know, when it's
credit card scams, money laundering, all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. And they're also protecting all of the, you know, all the dignitaries and all of our elected officials. But nonetheless, the U.S. Secret Service supplemented this case by doing the forensics on the cell phone, and Savanah, you know, she Googled that address because she was riding shotgun with him to do. Again, he wasn't living his life right. He was doing things that, you know, you shouldn't be doing, and sometimes these things you pay the ultimate. You pay the ultimate price when you're playing with fire. I want to go to the chats because a lot of people are going crazy in the chat and just see what's going on. Sarah, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. People do that quite often, Ed. And then you and I gifted out 10 memberships. I told everybody in the chat, place a number 20 in the chat if you want to receive a free gifted membership, but you have to be subscribed. You have to hit the thumbs up on this video right now. So everyone that's here, give it a thumbs up. We're going to get into some more forensics as it pertains into this probable cause affidavit. But you know, today we did hear from Matthew's parents, his dad and his stepmom. Jeff, thank you again for that super chat, and thank you, Dr. Ed. I know that was Julie that gifted out another 5 memberships. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
We heard from his parents. Ed, did you get a chance to listen to what they had to say?
Yes. Play it.
A little bit of play it. A little bit of acknowledgement, and they talked about the district attorney, and they want obviously the district attorney to follow through on the death penalty component of this heinous crime that was perpetrated on their son and daughter-in-law to be. So I didn't know. You never want to be in this position. This is your worst nightmare as a parent, as a human being. This is a difficult thing. So let's take a listen. They did this interview in their home, and this was from today.
Did you know she was pregnant?
Oh, always fake news. So.
Fake news again. There he goes.
That is a man accused of helping to hide the bodies of Savanah Soto and Matthew Guerra. Ramon Preciado and his son Christopher arrested last night for their alleged parts in the murders.
But today, more charges have been filed against the father and son. Christopher Preciado charged with capital murder. Now 2 more additional charges of abuse of a corpse and alter, destroy, conceal a human corpse. His father, Ramon, is also charged with abuse of a corpse and the newly added charge of alter, destroy, conceal a human corpse.
We're also, for the very first time, hearing from the family, Guerra's father and stepmother, speaking to KSAT today. Eric Hernandez reports they're hoping for the full extent of punishment for both men.
Upset, anger, all kinds of emotions just going through.
Gabriel and Raquel Guerra are breathing a sigh of relief after Christopher Preciado and his father Ramon were arrested Wednesday night in the deaths of their son Matthew Guerra, his girlfriend Savanah Soto, and their unborn child Fabian.
That was definitely a relief of mine that, I can hold someone accountable. I've been talking about justice for the 3 of them since it started.
Gabriel and Raquel say neither of them know who Christopher and Ramon are. According to the arrest affidavit, Matthew and Savanah met Christopher to allegedly sell them marijuana. We asked the Guerras about that information after they had previously stated that Matthew was trying to turn his life around.
Matthew hasn't made the best decisions, but he. I'll make no excuses for him. But whatever he did, I don't condone that at all. But that being said, no one deserves to be murdered, period, for regardless of what kind of activity you're in or what you're doing.
Now this case moves to the district attorney's office, and the Guerras say they want nothing less than the death penalty for Christopher Preciado.
Now it's on the DA. He had said something about the death penalty, and I'm going to hold him accountable to his word. And that's the next process for me, is him confirming that.
We did get a statement this afternoon from the district attorney's office about the case, and they say an additional capital murder charge could be added for Christopher for the death of the unborn child, but that hasn't been decided just yet. As far as the death penalty after an indictment, the Capital Crimes Committee will then decide whether to seek the death penalty or not.
So yeah, Capital Crimes Committee, they better come through because, the whole world's watching. And you have a full-term pregnancy, a full-term child, 9 months. This is all eyes are on them, Ed. I don't know what your thoughts on that, but I think it would be a real crummy look if they didn't go full tilt with the letter of the law. And, we had that happen here in 1996 when police officer Kevin Gillespie was killed, and the district attorney, Robert Johnston, here in the Bronx County in the 5 boroughs, he refused to invoke the death penalty on Angel Diaz, who murdered Kevin Gillespie. And George Pataki, the governor of New York State, stepped in and put District Attorney Robert Johnston, the Attorney General, Dennis Vacco, they put him in to replace Robert Johnston, the Bronx District Attorney. And before he was able to prosecute, that coward hung himself in Rikers Island. So,
I had both the crime scenes.
Yeah, well, I carry Kevin's shield, my Detective Shields 4503. It's right here.
I had Kevin's crime scene, and I went into Rikers to process Angel Diaz's hanging.
And what's so ironic about that is I took the phone call from the corrections captain when he called the PSA to let us notify us that he hung himself. I took that call and I entered it into the telephone message log.
Yeah.
So just an interesting turn of events here that Ed, you and I both had no knowledge of. You worked that crime scene. He was in my squad. He was a partner. I worked in the squad together with him on the midnights, and yeah, it's just crazy.
You know, also, since you brought it up, police officer Sanchez in the 13th precinct, his homicide, Robert Morgenthau refused to go for the death penalty.
Yeah.
And then later in prison, I mean, it was very controversial that he didn't do it, because if any case screamed for it, this one did, but he didn't go for it. And then later in prison, the Officer Sanchez's murderer would die in prison.
Yeah, calm as a bitch. Let's get into some of the finer points of this probable cause affidavit. So I have it saved here. I just want to pop it up real quick.
I just wanted to touch on something you said about the full extent of the law, because it seems to me there's a lot of other laws and crimes that were committed here that they have not been charged with yet. Maybe they're coming, I don't know, like tampering with a crime scene, altering evidence, destroying evidence. I mean, those charges should be coming up here as well. What about conspiracy, or not? Well, could be conspiracy, but that's after the fact. But there should be as I said, the after the fact crimes. So just like we discussed the other, about the laundries, why they weren't charged with accessory after the fact was because Florida had a law prohibiting that. But I don't know that Texas has that same law that shields a parent from being an accessory after the fact.
Right. Yeah, and I'd like to see what our chat feels and what our chat thinks. You guys can just express it out in words. How many people feel that there should be additional charges and that there should be a possible third piece in that pickup, in that Chevy Silverado? It's been confirmed now that it was not a Ford. It was, in fact, a Chevy Silverado. They have that truck in their possession, the police department. But how many people feel like they should, be looking at that? And what's uncomfortable, and, for us to even, get into this, if you don't physically see somebody in that video, it's hard to base your evidence and your arrest on that video. You'd have to either get a confession, or you'd have to have somebody say, yes, I was in that truck, because no jury, no grand jury is going to indict somebody on just your suspicion that there's a third person in there, right, Ed? You'd have to have more video evidence, maybe from some other locations that we don't know about, of a woman getting in there, maybe his wife, I'm just saying.
Or the other son.
Or the other son. Could be somebody from the family. It seems like this is a family affair. I think that they should, and I don't doubt that they aren't.
They're doing. I'm hoping they're doing the investigation and they're getting warrants for.
There's got to be an enhancement.
Right. They do their investigation and get warrants for the mother's cell phone, for the son's cell phone, to see if those cell phones were pinging from the cell tower in that area associated with that parking lot there, and to see if we can put placement inside the car. The car, according to the affidavit, the car yielded information as well. So about its movements, the car had gave the investigators time and how long they were at a certain location on Charlie Chan before they started moving, and so forth. So there's a lot of information that still needs to be investigated and gathered. Like I said yesterday, and I think Dr. Moskowitz asked the question here about, they should have canvassed the area, the entire area in there, and tried to pick up any ring cameras, any traffic cameras, any other types of like ATM cameras, gas station cameras, whatever that was in association to these locations, to see if you can find the movements of these vehicles and have it, that was captured on these cameras, and have that evidence as well. So there's a lot that needs to be done here, but I don't think the father could be charged for the homicides, the triple homicides here. I don't think the father can be, but accessory after the fact, yes. Tampering with evidence, yes.
Absolutely.
And the charges that he was charged with, yes.
Yeah. Well, let me just light up the screen with the probable cause affidavit, and Ed, you can let me know where you want me to go with this, because I think page 4, I want to say, the first page is the Bexar County, just the standard stuff, and it just is the police officer or Detective Jeremy Goodwin swearing out this affidavit, making an oath, and so forth. So page 1 is just really the pedigree, but he goes into some of the facts. And this, we all know about these facts here, and I can't highlight this because I didn't download it. This is just straight off the site. Can you guys see this good in the chat? Let me know on the chat, because I can't really make it any larger than this. This is like the fullest zoom, but let me know in the chat by saying, yeah, I could see this, or no, it's kind of hard for me to see it. But again, if you can't see it, I don't think I could do any better than this. Everyone's saying very clear. Okay. So at the bottom of this, they talk about on December 26th, going to the residence. That's that apartment complex at 5903 Danny K Drive, because they got a message on, I believe it was from Facebook, to the family of Soto. And they advised them that they believed the vehicle was parked in the back of this location. And then that started the wheels going. The Leon Valley Police Department arrived at the location and observed the vehicle. And inside the vehicle was a deceased pregnant female in the front seat and a deceased male in the back seat. Now, there's no description. Doesn't say if hey, Lisa Marie, I just want to just say quickly, I see you in the chat. You left me a message under one of the videos in the comments that you couldn't communicate in the chat or whatever. Sometimes when we edit videos, the replay chat goes away. So I think maybe you might have been confused in that regard, but you're here and I'm glad you are. So Ed, this is page 1 of that. It's just basically stating about the response.
Now, remember, this particular agency responded, but it was out of their jurisdiction. It was actually San Antonio PD's jurisdiction.
Yeah, but they responded because they took the missing person report.
Right. They responded after the phone call from the family. And then they got there, and then they called SAPD to come out.
Right. Yeah. And at the end of this page, it says, they observed the deceased male in the back seat, the female in the front seat. And then it says San Antonio police were contacted, and the above named on the affidavit, the detective upon arrival, I believe that's our homicide detective, upon arrival on the location, observed the vehicle. The vehicle was a 2013 Kia Optima with Texas license plate, such and such, with the VIN number. And this is just all formalities. They have to put this down. This was the VIN number that was broadcast on the news for the missing couple. A check of the information through the NCIC system, the TCIC, showed the vehicle belonging to the boyfriend of the female. So it was registered to Matthew Guerra. We observed the front right passenger side of the vehicle. You observed a deceased pregnant female inside the front right passenger seat. And Ed, in here, it doesn't talk about any broken windows or that they broke any windows. But this probable cause affidavit, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't give every single ounce. This is just laying down the foundation of why they arrested.
Why the judge should sign the arrest warrant. That's correct. It doesn't need to give all the specificity.
Yes. So just folks in the chat, just so you know, don't get yourself worked up over this, because there's more. There's much more details to this, but they're not giving the details out, and everybody wants to know the details, right? That's what we're all here for. So female inside the front passenger seat. We also observed female. He also knew the knowledge of, in other words, he's saying that he worked the case when her brother was murdered. Oh, jeez. Oh, I hit the...
What did he do?
I just grabbed a piece of paper and touched the stream deck. So that was, I'll have to... Yeah.
Where did Spicoli come from?
Spicoli, he's on our keyboard.
Oh, boy.
That was from when her brother was killed. Ethan, murdered on May 22nd. May of 2022. So he's basically saying here, Ed, that he had knowledge of the female Soto because of a previous murder case, and he lists out the murder case right here. I recognize the female to be that of the missing female. The female appeared to have trauma to her head. And again, no, Ed, you're going to just laugh about this the whole time of the show, that this little thing was on top of my stream deck. So
I'm not laughing. I'm looking at the chat, and they're laughing hysterically.
Of course they're going to laugh, but that was funny. Because you dick. But I have all these buttons here, and I had this taped to the top of it. So when I grabbed it, it came
Step away from the buttons. Go back to the affidavit.
We have to put a little humor into this because this is tough to even talk about. So the detective then observed in the back seat of the vehicle, and again, he's not describing in this probable cause affidavit any of the details of anything. And what I'm getting at is there's been reports that Matthew was in the back seat with his pants down. And again, we never spoke about it. We don't intend to go into it. But there's no mention in any of the legal documents that happened. But in the future, we may hear about that if this case goes to trial, which we would anticipate that it would. The detective observed the back seat of the vehicle. He observed the deceased male in the back seat of the vehicle. The deceased male resembled the boyfriend to the female. The male had an apparent gunshot wound to his head. It appears the male may have been dragged into the vehicle. The detective did not observe any weapons near the male. Ed, I'm going to put you back on, so just be aware. When it says that it appeared the male was dragged, that Matthew was dragged into the vehicle, do you want to maybe expand on that?
Well, okay, so he's looking at the position of the clothing, and maybe there is some scratches or marks on the clothing and or the skin of the victim, the exposed skin of the victim, that would indicate that maybe they were dragged on some type of surface. And he doesn't give it any specificity of the details here of what exactly he's looking at to make this determination. Again, that's why the examination of the clothing, examination of the skin by the medical examiner would be crucial to get that detail.
Right. And then they further state here that a search warrant was requested and it says so entry into the vehicle, to enter into the vehicle so that the vehicle could be searched. Again, you and I both know why the search warrant was obtained. People might argue and say, well, why didn't they go in there to see if they were in that vehicle for 4 to 5 days, or, again, now we know the 21st at the stroke of midnight, just before midnight, this crime occurred. So the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th, that's 5 days. What type of decomp in the state of Texas, and this is South Texas, what could we be looking at here? And this is the reason why they decided to get a search warrant, because it was obvious that there was no way. I even thought that they removed the female to the hospital, but that I don't think was the case here.
Right. But, I don't know what the temperature was, the weather conditions for those 5 days, so maybe if someone in the chat can tell us what the weather was, depending on what that weather was, and if you were inside of that vehicle and, it was certain temperatures with direct sunlight, the inside of the vehicle would heat up. That would cause some degree of possible decomp there.
Right. Anybody from the great state of Texas in the chat that could give us an approximate? Was it in the 60s, the 50s?
In San Antonio, if you're there from San Antonio.
Yeah, anybody from the San Antonio area.
Yeah, but the warrant was just to cover all bases there, because they didn't know exactly who at this time who the suspect was or who the suspects are, and so they were covering their bases by getting that warrant. Now, EMS doesn't need a warrant to make entry into the vehicle to take a look at the victim there to see if there was any life-saving procedures they could perform, so they can go in without a warrant. But once they're done and they pronounce death, that's it. They slam on the brakes, back out, and get the warrant to cover themselves. some people may argue they didn't need a warrant, but you don't know that at the beginning of this investigation. And so they erred on the side of caution, which is always the best way to err.
For the legal reason, so an attorney, a criminal defense attorney, can't fight that. They were thinking on their feet, and they said, you know what, let's do this the right way, and you got to respect that. So I think that was a good thing.
So they're saying, I'm seeing some people say 40 to 50 degrees,
60, 40, it was mild. So
because I mean, he wasn't wearing very much clothing when he got out of the truck, right? And the other day he was looking like he was wearing t-shirt and shorts in the sun as well.
Right. So it had to be, pretty nasty inside that car when it comes to decomp. So I wanted to just continue with this so we can get through it. A search warrant was requested to enter the vehicle. While waiting for the search warrant, let me put this back on. People don't want to see us. While waiting for the search warrant, the detective spoke to the families of the female and male, and we saw them on the scene. We saw how, upset they were and how loud it got at one point. It was found that the boyfriend to the female sold narcotics and would use his cell phone through cellular communications as well as social media to sell his narcotics. It was also advised that the boyfriend would post money and narcotics on Instagram. We all saw that. By a show of hands, who saw those posts of him holding all the money up against his face and showing his teeth and smiling and the narcotics laid out? I mean, I saw it myself. I just never spoke about it. But now it's here on paper in court documents. So he basically posted and boasted on Instagram and probably other platforms like Telegram and all of this stuff. And he posted the sale of his narcotics and advertised on social media. It was also stated that people wanted to rob the boyfriend, and it was stated, this is all coming from the parents of Guerra, that the boyfriend also had been shot at before. The family provided the detective with the phone number of the female, that's of Soto. The family of the male provided the detective with his phone number as well as his Instagram account. When the search warrant arrived at the location, the search of the vehicle was conducted. The search found a spent shell casing in the vehicle. Doesn't say where. However, there was no weapon recovered in the vehicle. So this weapon is still outstanding. And heck, Ed, what do you think that they did with this thing? Threw it in the lake?
Probably, yeah. They ditched the weapon.
Yeah,
they ditched the weapon.
5 days to get rid of it. Who thinks in the chat that thing's either in a landfill somewhere or thrown in some lake somewhere or put into a garbage pail or a dumpster or whatever? That thing is Gandhi. If they find that gun, that would be a miracle, and I hope that they do. But so the search found a spent shell casing inside the vehicle, and for those that might not know what a spent shell casing is, Ed.
It should be a cartridge case. It's the discharge cartridge that once contained the bullet. Once the bullet has been pushed out of the cartridge after the ignition of the gunpowder pushes the bullet out of the cartridge is ejected from a semi-automatic weapon, and it usually ejects to the right and rear on most semi-automatic weapons, depending on how the gun is being held. But it was definitely discharged and was inside of the car.
Yeah. Missy Blue says, were they tied up? We have no indication that they were tied up. If you heard that on Facebook, don't take Facebook to heart. Everything that you hear on social media, most of the time, it's not true. So let me just continue. Search warrant arrived at the location, found spent casing. However, there was no weapon recovered in the vehicle. There was apparent blood transfer on the outside of the vehicle. It doesn't say on what side, passenger or driver's side. That was not consistent with the boyfriend causing harm to the female. So that's how they ruled out murder-suicide, Ed. I'm taking in this writing. Both the female and the male had gunshot wounds to the head. Doesn't specify right behind right ear, behind left ear, to the temple. It doesn't specify. It just says had gunshot wounds to the head. And Ed, today you said something key to me. I want to see the autopsy results.
Mhm.
So that'll tell us a lot. Gunshot wounds to the head, both male and female, and the male also had apparent drag marks on his back. It doesn't say his backside, it just says his back.
Yeah, and it doesn't say it's the clothing. It doesn't say it's the skin. I'm guessing it's the skin. There could be some abrasions there caused by friction burns, dragging across some kind of surface. Whether that was caused inside the vehicle or externally on the outside of the vehicle, we don't know. But the blood on the outside, the blood transfer on the outside, I'd like to see what kind of blood stain patterns these are. Are they contact transfers?
Right.
Say the victim, the suspect, after he shot his victim, got blood on his hands, moving the victim, and then he did what we call a contact transfer to the exterior of the vehicle by the door handles and so forth.
Yeah. It was believed that the female and male were killed at a different location, and the vehicle was driven to the recovery location at the apartment complex. This is what's getting everybody crazy, because everybody wants to know, and let me know in the chat, let Ed know in the chat, don't you want to know where they were killed? Was it at the house over there on Charlie Chapin Drive? At the
Charlie Chan Drive.
Charlie Chan Drive, yeah, Chapin. Charlie Chan Drive. Where did this occur? Did it occur at a different location? And if it occurred outside their house and close to their house, Ed, why didn't somebody call the police?
Yeah, that's the thing that's bugging me. If these gunshots occurred as we suspect by the Charlie Chan residence, how come no one called 911? How come there's no record of this? It also, this is a clear case for shot spotter. To have these shot spotter systems all over this neighborhood, because looking at the LexisNexis crime map, it seems like this area of San Antonio is on fire.
Right. And could it be possible that people are just so used to hearing gunshots that they're like, it's just another 2 gunshots. We didn't hear 30, so maybe we don't have to call. It's just a pop.
Right.
Who knows? I don't know. Listen, folks, if you're not yet subscribed to Crime Time with DutyRon and this guy here, Ed Wallace, please hit that subscribe button. Share out this video onto your social media platforms. Give us the thumbs up. It's free. Subscribing is free. Come here and check out this community. We are a learning community. We try to do the best we can to educate you, give you straight talk on true crime from the police detective's perspective.
Maybe that blood on the outside of the car was also what the father wiped with the towel.
Yeah. Right. And maybe that's why he came, because now it's like kind of making a lot of sense of why they came and met up, because there was the plan. He followed the son to park that car at the final resting location, and then the son probably got into the father's car. I don't think that they have that on video, because if they did, they would, they might have put it here in the affidavit. I don't see that. And they might have put that out as well as that one video that we watched over and over and over again. So yeah, and people want to know, was it Chris's gun? Was it Matthew's gun that was used to murder them? They'll be able to get that from the ballistics, right, Ed?
Well, they have no gun right now. So what they'll do is they'll microscopically examine the cartridge case that was recovered in the side of the vehicle. They'll photograph what's known as the head stamp on the back, which has the primer and all the information of the manufacturer, caliber, and so forth. In addition, it'll have the breech marks, the tool marks that were made into the head stamp when the cartridge was discharged. The gases push that cartridge back into the breech and leaves those marks. And then it'll also look for the extractor mark and the ejector marks that are on the side of the shell, the cartridge rather. And they'll put all of that into IBIS, Integrated Ballistic Identification System, and try to see if they can match this cartridge case to any other cartridge cases that were collected as crime scene evidence from other shootings, to see if this gun was used in other shootings. Then the bullets from the medical examiner.
Right. So there's a lot of work to be done here.
They're going to get the bullets from the medical examiner after they're retrieved on autopsy, and they're going to do microscopic analysis of the bullets. Again, They're going to determine how many lands and grooves are on the bullet and which direction the bullets lands and groove go, right or left. And then they'll get class characteristic information to identify the make and model of a gun that could potentially fire that caliber of cartridge through that type of barrel.
Okay, let's continue with this because it goes now into a little bit more of details. So when the search, okay, I read this up to the recovery location. The vehicle was driven to the recovery location, right? That's where I stopped. I'm just going to read it over again because I'm not sure if I went through this. When the search warrant arrived at the location, the search of the vehicle was conducted. Search found spent shell casings. Yes, we covered this. It was believed that the female and male were killed at a different location and the vehicle was driven at the recovery location. That's where we left off. During further investigation, the detective found video surveillance video at 5903 Danny K. The video surveillance found that on December 21st of 2023, around 23:59 hours. You know, these are the timestamps that you and I were scratching our heads about, right? That's where this time is coming from that video. Mm-hmm. At 23:59 hours, that was December 21st, Thursday night. The Chevy Silverado gray driving with its lights off from the vehicle recovery location. Silverado pulled in the middle of the back parking lot and parked the vehicle. The victim's vehicle could be seen approaching the Chevy Silverado. That's when he shut the lights off and made that quick right turn. The victim's vehicle parked next to the Silverado. A heavy-set male exited the Silverado, and the driver's side door of the victim's vehicle opened. The heavy-set male approached the driver of the victim's vehicle and appeared to speak to the driver. He was in there, out of that vehicle, I counted it, 30 seconds. That was a 30-second engagement. The heavyset male then got a towel from his vehicle and appears to wipe down the outside of the victim's vehicle's door where he had touched the vehicle. The driver of the victim's vehicle exited the vehicle for a brief moment and sat back in the driver's seat. He was actually pushed back. The driver did not match the description of the female victim or the male victim. The Hispanic male got back into his vehicle. The victim's vehicle drove behind the building where the vehicle was found on December 26th of 2023. The Silverado followed that victim's vehicle. And
now,
go ahead.
I mean, they articulated right here tampering with evidence with the towel. That's why I don't understand why he wasn't charged with that.
Yeah. It's confusing because I read this 2 times before we went live, and that's where I kind of got stumped on that paragraph there. Mm-hmm. And maybe they feel like, and let me put us back on. Maybe Ed, they feel like with the capital murder charges that they got this slam dunk. But,
well, that's the son. The father's not charged with capital murder. The father should have been correct. Charged with tampering with the evidence.
Correct. And it's so confusing. It's just so confusing. And they're, again, going to spell out that he had nothing to do with the actual murders of these 2 victims. Potentially here now you'll see a 3rd victim being the unborn son. So let me put it back on because we're almost done. Approximately 3 minutes later, the Silverado was observed leaving from behind the building where the victim's vehicle was found. The victim's vehicle did not leave that location. It was believed that the victims were already deceased inside that vehicle at the time of the video observed. It is believed that the unknown driver and a heavyset male observed parked the victim's vehicle at the location in an effort to hide the vehicle. This is talking more about that. The father's culpability. Okay. On January 2nd, 2024, the detective provided one of the victim's cell phones to Detective Knox at the Tactical Investigations Unit. On January 3rd, that was last night, 2024, detective received a phone download from Detective Knox. The detective found that the victim had recently searched the street of Charlie Chan Drive. Due to your detective's knowledge of the crime scene area, the detective was aware that Charlie Chan Drive was just a couple of blocks away from the victim's vehicle recovery location. So these people lived just a couple of blocks away from that apartment, and they just decided it was a good idea to just take that vehicle and put it a couple of blocks away, and they'd be okay.
Not too sharp.
Talk about dumb criminals, right?
Thank
Detective,
God for that.
your detective was able to discover that the victim's vehicle pinged. Now, this is where Tommy came into play last night. We talked about the Kia, 2013 Kia, and the capabilities. They're talking about a ping. Is that, are they talking about Savanah's cell phone pinging inside there? Did they say the victim's vehicle pinged? So I'm not sure if they're talking about her phone that was left inside that vehicle. Is the phone still going to be going? Okay, but they're talking about this ping. Let's see what time the vehicle didn't stop moving.
23:50 hours. The ping occurred at Charlie Chan and Gary Grant. Now, are all these streets named after actors?
I guess so. It seems that way. That's why I started getting confused with what I was saying. The vehicle did not start to move again until around 23:54 hours. The vehicle then traveled to 5903 Danny K Drive, where the victims and their vehicles were discovered on December 26th. So that phone couldn't have stayed. The battery had to have died. It didn't last for 5 days. The detective conducted a computer research and was able to locate a vehicle that looked identical to the suspect's vehicle seen on camera within the vehicle, with the victim in the vehicle. The detective did research on the owner of the vehicle and found the owner of the vehicle matched the description of the male that exited the vehicle on camera. They're talking about the father, Ramon. Homicide detectives went to the vehicle location listed above and found the listed vehicle at the location. That's at the home. While at the residence on Charlie Chan Drive, a person identified as Ramon Preciado reported knowing why. He said to them, "I know why you're here." So Ramon informed the detectives to speak with his son, identified as Christopher. Ramon and Christopher were transported to San Antonio Police Department homicide to speak with the detectives, while additional San Antonio PD detectives searched the residence on Charlie Chan Drive under the authority of a search warrant. Detective spoke with Ramon. After Ramon was read his Miranda warnings, Ramon admitted to driving his Chevy Silverado to 5903 Danny K Drive, where he met Christopher. Ramon identified himself on surveillance video. So he watched the video right there in the squad, in the interview and interrogation room, from 5903 Danny K as a person observing exiting the Chevy Silverado as him being that person. Ramon reported meeting Christopher at that location in an apartment complex, who was driving another vehicle. This vehicle is in which Matthew Guerra and Savanah Soto were found deceased. Ramon admitted to assisting Christopher, his son, at 5903 Danny K Drive. Ramon knowingly treated the human corpse of Matthew Guerra and Savanah Soto and the unborn child of Savanah Soto named Fabian in an offensive manner by leaving them in an abandoned vehicle. Now, Ed, some people may get caught up on this offensive manner. And what's your take on that?
I mean, that's just the way he's wording it to meet to meet the definition of the crime.
The letter of the law.
The letter of the law. Now, going back, the research that he did seems to be DMV records. So it would appear to me that he did DMV records for the vehicle, and then once he got the registered owner's information, he did a DMV search for Texas driver's license, and then got that height and weight that says matches the person seen in the video. So that it seems to me that's where he was going with that research.
Right.
But let's
continue, because we're almost done here. Tara, thank you for the super chat, and I'll get to all the super chats in a second. So let me finish this up. Hold on, how do I get this off? There we go. The detective then spoke to Christopher, and after Christopher, the son, was read his Miranda warnings, Christopher reported Matthew Guerra and Savanah Soto drove to his residence. So now we know that they drove to his residence based on his statement on Charlie Chan Drive to sell Christopher marijuana. I was kind of surprised when I heard it was just a marijuana sale. I was thinking like something more like Coke or something.
I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I'm not buying it either, but this is on paper.
Again, these are self-serving statements.
Correct. This is coming from the defendant. Christopher went on to provide a version of events that were inconsistent with evidence collected at the scene. Now, I'm going to stop right there. What does that mean, Ed?
It means his statement is bullshit. Okay. What he's saying is,
hold on a second.
Oh, hell no.
To that, the statement?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. That's correct. He's talking about, you're going to see it later, this struggle that he got, not realizing that both of these shots are in the back of their heads.
Yeah.
And it's just not jiving with what he's saying. So let's go on. You see why it doesn't jive.
Okay, so Christopher went on to provide a version of events that were inconsistent with evidence collected at the crime scene and from the victim's recovered vehicle. Christopher claimed that a male victim, meaning Matthew, pointed a weapon at him, and Christopher was able to manipulate the weapon, resulting in the female being shot one time in the back of the head. Christopher then stated that had the weapon, they didn't word this. Christopher stated that he then got the weapon and pointed it at him again. That Matthew pointed it at again, and then he, in easy fashion, he manipulated it again, the weapon, resulting in the male victim being shot. Christopher's statement is inconsistent with the gunshot wounds suffered by Matthew Guerra and Savanah Soto and the evidence located at the crime scene. Christopher intentionally discharged the firearm at Savanah Soto and Matthew Guerra with the intention of causing their death. The actions of Christopher resulted in the death of Matthew Guerra, Savanah Soto, and Savanah Soto's unborn child named Fabian. Now, Ed, can you go over this piece where it says the statement is inconsistent with gunshot wounds suffered by Matthew and Savanah and the evidence collected at the crime scene? And I hate to do this to you, but I'm doing it.
Well, he's saying we know there's a contact wound to Matthew, and he makes no mention of how does he place that gun? He's struggling for the gun with Matthew, and he manages to get the gun and place it to the back of Matthew's head and pull the trigger. I mean, it does make no sense. Okay. So, and he still doesn't say outside the car, inside the car. Okay.
They're lying. That he's lying to save his butt. And the detective goes on to say, the detective has reason to believe and does believe that said defendant Christopher Ray Preciado, on or about the 21st day of December 2023 in Bexar County, Texas, intentionally caused the death of multiple persons in violation of section 19-19.03 of the Penal Code of the state of Texas. And that's the end of the document. It's just signatures and so forth.
Right. And there could be a lack of gunshot residue on Matthew's hands. There could be a lack of blood backspatter on Matthew's hands. If he was struggling with the gun when Christopher fired the gun, you might expect to see some of those things. And maybe the crime scene investigators and the medical examiners didn't see any of that. And so that's why, again, it's inconsistent with the forensic evidence.
Yeah, I want to go to the chat because there's so many questions and so many people in the chat. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. Send in your questions. I want to look at them. Let's go to the starred messages. Elizabeth, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. Jeff, thank you for the super love. Dr. Ed, thank you for the memberships, gifting. It looks like everybody went on a gifting membership spree. Lauren Cove, thank you for gifting membership. Ed and I gifted 15 or 25 or something like that. I don't even remember. Sheila, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. Look at all the love here. Sharon, thank you for the super sticker. Miriam Shiro, she says, I really appreciate you, DutyRon, and your pal, Ed Wallace. Ed's my brother from another mother. So, yeah, Ed's here he's here. Every day is a learning day, according to Ed, and I'm seeing that. Rebecca, thank you for becoming a member. Southern Charmed sends in a $5 super sticker. Thank you. Mountain Girl, again, 212, coming in with a super sticker and a lot of questions. Tara Ellis saying,
That's how you pronounce the name.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not even going to try it. Cheated No More sends in a super sticker, $2. Thank you for trying, Tara. All right, so let's go to the questions because I know that I saw a few of them fly by. Let me get rid of this. Ramon is about to trim down. It's probably correct. Joey Brooklyn says, "What a membership kind of night." Yeah, I agree. Do you see any questions? I'm trying to go back. Hashtag.
Well, I just saw a couple here. Hold on, let me. Mountain Cat says, Ed, if Savanah was shot behind the right ear of the car, in the car where she was found, wouldn't the shooter have to have been in the back seat? Yes, that's possible. Especially if the back doors weren't open or that would give access to the gun, or a window wasn't open to give access. Now, if you look at the timeline that was in the affidavit there, that car was only in front of that Charlie Chan residence for a short period of time before it started moving again.
Correct. Yeah, it was a very short period of time.
Uh-huh.
So interesting to say the least. I want to play one more piece.
This seems more like a robbery than an actual drug deal. Like he was going to rip off the drug dealer because maybe he saw the mounds of cash that he kept posting on these secure social media channels here.
Yeah, and here's Lisa. Lisa Hawk fan says 4 minutes to be exact.
Yep.
I love our statisticians. The statisticians, they're on the times and keeping up checks and balances.
Listen, math is everything. Without math, there's no existence.
2 + 2 = 6, right?
It never did and never will.
Thank you. All right. So a lot of people in the chat. I would like to get one person that wants to come up here and ask us questions as it pertains to this crime scene. Tracy says, hashtag Ed, do you think it could have been a gang hit, execution style? We know it's not a gang hit because we know who did it. We know right now from this that it basically was a drug deal that went bad.
If we
don't need to speculate anymore.
Right. And if that was the case, that would have been in that affidavit, that a juicy piece of information that he was a gang member or affiliated with a gang member, Christopher, who has no known criminal record.
He didn't even have a NYSID. He didn't even have a state SID number, state identification number.
Yeah.
So, all right, third person, maybe, but it sounded like the sergeant said last night that there is no possible way that there was a third person.
That there's no other arrest pending, right? So,
he said, this is it.
Yeah, that was last night. I mean, things could change.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so I want to get something up here. Hold on a second. I want to toot my horn just for a second, Ed.
I thought maybe you needed to go to the pharmacy, but anyhow.
No. There's no pharmacy. Thank you, Ed. I love your humor. Your humor is great. So two nights ago, now it's 3 nights ago, I went live by myself. Ed wasn't available. It was late. And I did a live stream talking about the district attorney's conversation that he had with, he was interviewed by a local news outlet, and he made a statement, and he said, one defendant. And I said, and I went out on a limb, and I said, I have a feeling that there's going to be one person responsible for the deaths of Savanah Soto and Matthew Guerra. And I was right. So I want to play that. I want to do a little horn tooting, Ed. So let me share the screen and get that on. This is from 2 nights ago. It's actually going on 3 nights. And here I am. So you guys are going to have to listen to me for a second. Attorney first said, whoever. He made a reference to, not plural. Second time he said perpetrators. But the first time he said the perpetrator. that committed this crime. I feel we're going to make an arrest soon. So it makes me think, as a detective and as someone who's worked cases, that perhaps there's one individual that they're looking for, because he corrects himself after he makes that boo-boo. And he's saying to himself, and this is me thinking out loud, oh, I can't give away the shop. And I just did. So let's see, let's play it again, and let's take a listen closely to the part where he says about the arrest being imminent. I'll fast forward. I'll
made
fast
the
forward
election.
so you don't have to detective makes me say they got the cell phone records. They did all of the forensics. They have one perpetrator. I'll put my stamp on that. If I'm wrong, I'll admit to it, but I don't think I'm wrong. That was Tuesday night. I don't think I have to admit that I was wrong. What are you smiling about, Ed?
No, I'm just looking at the chat.
I'm tooting my horn. I had to toot it just one time.
Okay.
I don't often do that, but yeah, I went out on a limb there, and I thought that, Ed, what's the difference between two charges the dad has been charged with: abuse of a corpse and alter, destroy? ? It's a good question, Butterfly.
Yeah, I think one has to do with depositing that vehicle there with the corpse there, the first one. The second one, the altering of the corpse, may have to do with the decomp caused by them putting that body there. So that would be my guess, because I don't know exactly the full definition of these crimes.
Anything else jump out at you, Ed, in the chat before we get ready to wrap up? I was going to invite one person to come up and ask us some questions. Everyone's having a fun time and laughing.
Okay.
Who's still in jail? That's a good question, but I'll let you take that one. Go ahead.
All right. Amanda asks, Ed, can there be fingerprints on the spent casings? Now, normally in my entire career, the only time I've ever gotten fingerprint on spent cartridge casings was from a person that picked it up after it was discharged from
Today, of course.
From the gun, not from the person that typically loaded the cartridges in the gun, the live cartridges in the magazine, and placed it in the gun. Due to the mechanics and the friction and the heat and the fire and all that, there doesn't really tend to be any fingerprints left after the cartridge has been ejected. Again, if someone touched it afterwards, there's a possibility of doing that as well. Now, if they processed Matthew's wrist and hands for fingerprints and DNA, if he was dragged, as they suggest that maybe he was grabbed by the hands and dragged on his back to be put into the back of the car, they should have processed those hands. The hands should have been bagged, as I said earlier, right? For any transfer for hairs and fibers and fingernails and skin, whatever. And then the hand should have been processed. The wrist should have been processed. The arm for fingerprints and DNA. And if he did grab Christopher grabbed Matthew with bare hands, then there would be a transfer of his DNA to the skin of Christopher in the areas that were exposed. And then you swab those areas, look for the fingerprints, as I showed you the method of getting fingerprints from skin. Look for that. You do, again, non-destructive stuff first. So you examine the skin with an alternate light source. You examine the skin with infrared photography, and then you go into the destructive testing that you could do to see if fingerprints and or DNA are present there.
I want to ask you too, and this could be user-generated question. You talk about bagging the hands, and I know you bagged many hands over your time in processing crime scenes, but Ed, won't they look under her fingernails and his fingernails to see if they put up a struggle and scratched?
Absolutely. That's why I said they should have bagged the hands, yes, before those bodies were removed from the car.
Yeah. And we see that in a lot of these type of, these crimes where you have young adults that are murdered. They tend to fight. So I'm sure that they weren't just taken by surprise. So again, 5 days went by, and that was a decent amount of time. But I wanted to play this little piece, and then I'll share. I'm going to share the link, and then we'll invite maybe one person to come up and ask questions. You can ask Ed the Guru any type of crime scene questions, but there's so many unanswered questions, and we will eventually find them as we go. Sister Carol Ann Clark sent in a $20 super chat, and she said, "Thanks for keeping us informed," with the thumbs up. I thought they were on their way to the hospital since she had the car seat on her lap. That might have just been moved. We don't know. It might have been in the back seat and they moved it.
Maybe it was in the back seat and it was in the way of Christopher putting Matthew in the back seat. So he just took it and he threw it up to the front. And then when he got in the car, he pushed it over onto her.
Right. Let's play this and then I'll share the link. And then everyone just remember to please hit the subscribe button and hit that thumbs up while you're here in the chat. And we'll give away a couple more memberships. So everybody hang around.
The big story today, of course, are the arrests of a father and son in connection to the deaths of Savanah Soto, Matthew Guerra, and their unborn baby.
Tiffany Huertas joins us now with some new details that we're learning about the murders and the arrests. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, that's right. Thanks to these arrest affidavits, we know more information, and we've learned more about what led to Savanah and Matthew's deaths and the arrest of 19-year-old Christopher Preciado, who San Antonio police believe is the couple's killer, and his father, 53-year-old Ramon Preciado, who police believe helped hide the bodies. This is the latest of what we've learned about this case. Savanah's family reported her missing to Leon Valley Police on Friday, December 22nd. But San Antonio police have now told us that Savanah and Matthew were killed just before midnight on Thursday, December 21st. SAPD found their bodies 5 days later at an apartment complex on Danny K, in Matthew's car in the parking lot. But police say the complex has no connection to the murders. It's just where the bodies were left. We've been showing the surveillance video that SAPD released last Thursday, but police say the key piece of evidence that led them to the Preciados was Soto's cell phone that was found with the bodies. After following leads for a couple of days, police were eventually led to the Preciados' residence. When officers arrived at the Preciados' house, the father said he knew why they were there, and he and his son were taken into custody. According to the affidavit, 19-year-old Christopher Preciado said Matthew and Savanah drove to his house on Charlie Chan Drive to sell him marijuana, and that Matthew initially pointed a gun at him. However, the investigation states that Christopher's version of events were inconsistent with gunshot wounds to Savanah and Matthew. He claims he wrestled the gun away from both victims and shot them in self-defense. Now, as for the father, 53-year-old Ramon Preciado admitted to driving his truck to the apartment complex after the murders and being the person on the surveillance video. He also placed Christopher as the driver of the vehicle, believed to have belonged to Matthew. Now that the two men are in custody, SAPD says they are working with the Bexar County District Attorney's Office to determine if there will be any further charges since Savanah was pregnant and about to give birth. Also mentioned in the affidavit was that police learned Matthew Guerra was known to sell drugs and used his phone and Instagram to sell them, and that he had been the target of robberies and shootings before. As for the suspects, we checked records this morning, and 19-year-old Christopher Preciado has no criminal history that we've been able to find. The father, Ramon Preciado, did have some criminal history, but nothing since the 90s. And we're continuing to learn more information this morning. We also learned that Ramon Preciado's bond was set at $100,000, and his son, Christopher, has also been set at $1 million.
If that guy makes bond and gets out, Ed, that's a travesty of justice. That bond is way too low, and I'm disgusted by it. Listen, we covered in Houston Diamond Alvarez. She was shot back 22 times by her boyfriend and he spit on her, and he got out with an ankle monitor. How now I could hit the button. How in the did that happen? That is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
All right. Nana's Dragonflies in. Once she gives the thumbs up, we're going to add her in so she can ask questions for either Ed Wallace or myself. Just let us know where you're watching from, and welcome, Nana's Dragonfly.
Hi, I'm from South Carolina.
Love
Go
it.
Gamecocks.
Go Gamecocks.
Yes.
What's the question?
I guess I'm just curious. Are we thinking that the dad was at the crime scene and he drug him to the car with his son, and then they went to the other place to drop them off?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
If he would have dragged him with his son, we'd be looking at something different here.
Yeah, there would have been no need to meet up in the back parking lot there. I think the father was someplace else when this occurred. The son murdered these two people, or the three people rather, and in a panic called the father, told him what he did. The father said, "Meet me here." They met there, and then they came up with the plan to deposit that car where it was found.
So you're saying that the son dragged them in the car by himself?
Well, I'm not sure that
They ever got out of the car.
I don't believe she ever got out of the passenger seat. I believe she was shot where she was. I believe Christopher was in the back seat of that car because this was supposed to be a drug deal, on the streets, right? So they maybe went into the car for a little privacy to do the drug deal. And Christopher had no intentions of buying drugs. He had intentions of robbing them. And he basically executed both of them from the back seat. Then he got out, dragged Matthew out of the driver's seat, threw him in the back seat, and jumped in the car and drove off.
Yeah.
So why is the dad being accused of
Desecration of a human body.
Because he instructed his son to put the car. He orchestrated the cover up here. He instructed his son to take the car to the back and leave it.
To dump the bodies in the back of
that charge has nothing to do with physically touching the body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I hope you continue to stay subscribed and hang out with us.
No, I love you guys. You're wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. There she goes. Nana's Dragonfly. South Carolina. Go Gamecocks. All right. Who was up next?
I see John. You got to open up your camera. Let us see you there.
Yep. Once he does it, we'll let him in. If not, I'll just skip over and we'll go to MG. Camera's got to be okay.
All right. There's John. Give us a thumbs up, John, and we'll let you on. You can shut your camera down. Okay.
All right. Here we go. John, what's your question? Where are you watching us from?
I'm in South Texas. Actually 3.5 hours south of San Antonio.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
The Rio Grande Valley.
All right.
Gotcha.
What's your question?
I've been following. It's not really a question, but I've been following your all's lives since the beginning, and not only that, but kind of watching different social media platforms. And I came up with some information that maybe y'all don't have, that maybe you'd like to listen or hear about. Do you kind of tell me what you think on it? Matthew's brother came up on a live on a social media platform where he was being asked some questions about the whereabouts of his brother. And on this live, and actually I have the video because I did a screen record that I can send you. Matthew's stating that his girlfriend loaned him the phone to contact Matthew and Soto phone, and that at some point, you know how some cell phones will show you that someone's typing,
right? Yeah, as they're typing back.
So somebody was actually attempting to type, but then thought about it and didn't follow through with the typing. So you all might be able to put it together once I share the video with you with the timestamp.
You could go over to DutyRon.com and you could share it there. But here, Ed and I will always say this, like, this is still an active and ongoing investigation. All of this information that we're talking about here, his brother should have given that to the San Antonio detectives, the homicide detectives.
Now you're talking about Matthew's brother, right? Did I get that correct?
Yes, Matthew's brother.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
I'm sure that they've interviewed all of the families and the extended family of Guerra. So I'm sure that they've had to have got hold. When did this video take place, John?
I saw it yesterday after you all posted the reveal of them doing that walkout.
Right.
So it was later in the evening that somebody else came up on a live, and I just wanted to watch and see how they did theirs and what information they had.
Gotcha.
And it was a video about Matthew's brother, but not only that, they showed a video.
Review it, send it to me, I'll review it, we'll make a decision, and then we'll forward it to the detectives if need be.
Yeah.
Right.
Normally in a criminal investigation like that, they're going to interview all of the decedent's family members
Right out to the cousins, to everybody.
Because, they're trying to establish when was the last time Matthew was seen and heard from and so forth. So if that information is in fact true, the law enforcement should be made aware of it, and the brother should have told it to law enforcement.
Absolutely.
Right. One other thing that they shared on that live that I found interesting was that Christopher, the one who's the person, the suspect that committed the crime, that he started posting on social media shortly after all this cash, and
he had all this money. I heard saw that too. Again, the detectives, that's for them to look at. It's not for us to go into that. We're not here to solve crimes. We're here to help bring attention to them. So if we see stuff like that, if you're seeing it on Facebook or, I like to call it fake book, but when you're seeing it on social media platforms, you can bet your bottom dollar that the detectives that are working this case have seen it too.
Yeah, they got that information.
Yeah, I don't want to spin wheels, but thank you, John, for calling in. I got 2 other people waiting. Send it to me on DutyRon.com. I'd be glad to look at it. Ed and I will look at it together.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Take care, brother. All right, so there he goes.
Amber, if you're there, open up your camera so we can see you, and then give us a thumbs up. Okay, Amber, good to go.
All right. Thank you, Amber.
Shut your camera down and turn on the mic.
Keep it on, or you could shut it down. It's up to you. All right, so here we go. Amber, where are you watching from?
Well, I'm in Bandera, Texas. I'm about hour and a half north of San Antonio. So I just want to say I feel really honored right now to just even pop on here. I love you guys. I love your work. I love hearing everything. So
thank you.
Basically, I just have
from Dallas.
Basically, I know I talk. Sometimes I talk. A couple things, but I just wanted to hear your perspective of basically a question I have, which is, so being up here, my husband worked TDCJ for 10 years. He was a corrections officer, and he's, he knows the dirty stuff. And when this came out, we were talking about it. Sometimes he pops on to some of my, your shows and everything else. He's on there, Corrections Mike.
Tell him we said thank you for your service. Thank you. That's a tough job working behind a wall. So.
Yes, sir. Yeah, he's pretty happy now. He's a mechanic and he does other things now. So
good.
He goes back to those places sometimes, but he's still here. And
okay.
We were talking about this and just. I know I put something on a comment about, it's San Antonio, this happens, But we were discussing it recently, and just, I think so my question is, for where y'all work, definitely not here, but you guys, you have those connections of the long term where this goes, and this is a big case. I think I put something on your page about other cases, and hey, we're focused on this right now, what you said to me. I'm curious to what you would think the repercussions are, or if you believe that there's some things that they're holding back for the simple fact of these, obviously, you can sit there like a joker in a fucking car all day. I don't know. But damn pretty well that this is some long-term stuff, maybe some deep-seated issues, and what repercussions would that have that the police would be cautious with to keep that from filtering into the prison community, because we are very understaffed here. We have gang issues already. and maybe to express from your side where you live, to some of your viewers of why they need to be careful with things, what kind of things they need to be careful with, because I think this is a pretty big case out here, and I'm personally kind of worried about what's going to happen in other places to our brothers and sisters that have still more work to do. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm understanding is that there's certain things law enforcement will have to keep close to the vest. They're not going to give out all the details. Yes, this is a very high-profile case. They're getting international coverage.
Oh yeah.
So they're going to keep certain things close, and at the time when necessary, that information will come out. I don't think there's going to be any kind of cover-up or anything like that.
No.
They're doing a professional job as far as I'm concerned.
The whole world is watching right now. I mean, they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. But I get what you were saying, Ed, and I know where you're going with it. There's things that they got to hold close to the vest, and sometimes people get frustrated with that when they don't let the whole cat out of the bag and just tell it all. There's time and place to tell it all, and that's in the courtroom while the district attorney is presenting their case. So once the state gets this case and it's tried in the court of law, that's when your hair gets let down, and that's when everything comes out. So that's the particular reason why we're hearing bits and pieces of it. We understand it because we used to deal with the district attorney for 20 plus years. We're dealing back and forth on these cases. But for someone who doesn't have that experience, it could seem like there's something suspicious about it. Amber, I appreciate that question, and I appreciate you coming on and tell your husband he made it to the finish line. He got out of there and in one piece. So, kudos to him for what he did. Ed, it's an hour and 30 minutes. It's past our bedtime, so we got to get out of here. Amber, have a good night. Thank you.
We just got one more person. Let's take them. They took the time to call. So MG, if you can open up your camera, let us see you. Okay.
There she is. Right. You ready to
go? All right. Go ahead.
MG, where are you calling from?
Hey guys. Hey, it's actually Mountain Girl. I don't know why it showed up like this.
Hi, Mountain Girl. What's going on?
We know Mountain Girl.
Hey.
Okay.
She shares her stuff all the time. She's awesome.
Yeah, so I just wanted to tell you guys, I seriously admire the heck out of you guys. You guys have done a fabulous job, on this case. And something that I wanted to point out is whenever I thought when we would see, an arrest in this case, that we would see somebody who had, some marks on their face or some, self-defense wounds. So that kind of led me to think that it was possible that, they pretty much had a weapon out immediately. So what do you think about that? Because I would think that, if they were able to fight that, the victim, he would have, fought like heck, with this person.
Right. So, if the story that's in the affidavit, which Christopher gave, was true, you would have, blunt force trauma injuries potentially on both Christopher and Matthew. All right, for the struggle. Right. And if that's not there, then that leads credence to the fact that Christopher's story is full of shit. Okay, and if the only injuries are also, again, if Christopher was fighting with Matthew, and then maybe Matthew has some trace transfer evidence on his hands and so forth, and moved on. And if we don't find any of that, again, more credence. And again, there's going to be that interaction. There's the Lecard's exchange principle. So, given the fact that you don't see any of these things, maybe scuffs on the knees, maybe they fell to the ground or whatever the case may be in the fight, we don't know. But I don't, having not seen, that's why I say to Ron earlier, I want to see that autopsy report. I want to see
autopsy report is going to tell us a lot. It's going to answer a lot of questions, all of the unknowns, because we're going to hear and see about any defensive wounds and any, anything that happened to the body trauma wise. And that's going to be a treasure trove of information, and that will be released in good time. And we all have to be patient. And what's going to happen is the speculation is going to fly wild all across the internet. People are going to be throwing out all kinds of things. And I love to just throw that fake book name out there, because you get fake information from fake book. It's a
now, the only thing that I've seen on there that has been like the factual stuff, like where they've actually shown from the neighbor who was, actually filming the stuff and everything. But you're right. I mean, there's been a lot of misinformation like on social media. It's been crazy. And something else that I really feel in my gut and wonder is if the suspects, if they tuned in and like watched, experts like yourself, like covering the case, to just kind of compare and see, like, hey, are we, able to get by with this? Or, what do the public think? Are they on to us? Like, I would think there would be some sort of like paranoia with them.
Yeah, but
and following the case closely, because
Mountain Girl,
haven't we heard in cases like where they actually can
yeah. Just Mountain Girl, Ed Wallace talked on the very first or second night that we did this, covered this case, and he explained to everyone that I think Bexar County, you went down there and trained some of those guys down there.
Yes, Bexar County. I trained some of their crime scene investigators, as well as Bexar County Sheriff's Office and San Antonio PD and the Bexar County Institute of Forensic Science, the medical examiner's personnel.
So they got the knowledge, they got the experience.
All right.
All right, we got to run because it's past our bedtimes, but thank you, Mountain Girl, for joining us and coming in. I love that you came on here. All right, saying goodnight to Mountain Girl. Ed, let's I know there's somebody down in the studio, but this could continue to go on and on and on. So Kool-Aid Bot Kid, got to make it quick because we got to run out of here. We love and appreciate everyone coming on. We asked people to come on. So I add you to the studio. Just keep it pertaining to the evidence and what we're discussing here. Where are you calling from, and what's your question?
Yeah, I'm calling from South Carolina.
Another South Carolina. Go Gamecocks.
Yeah. And I was wondering if anyone's discussed the carrier in the front seat in the lap of Soto, and I was wondering if that happened because she was trying to protect the baby, or if whenever they were in the back seat, they threw it on her to make room in the back seat.
That's what we think.
I mentioned that earlier today, earlier in the show, that I felt, Christopher was in the back seat. And again, this is all speculation. I would like to see the forensics, the whole workup inside the car, the gunshot residue. We already have one cartridge case in the car. So I'm thinking since their placement of the gunshot wounds to the victims are in the back of the head, that he was in the back seat. His intentions were to rob them. He shot both of them immediately for the robbery, and the seat was in the way of him putting Matthew in the back. So he tossed it up in the front. And then when he got in the front to drive the car off with the two victims, DOA in there, dead, he threw the seat on top of her. But the seat should be processed with an MVAC for DNA, fingerprints, hairs and fibers, to see if we can't get his information on that car seat.
And we talked about that last night, Kool-Aid Bot Kid. It's the most logical explanation of why that car seat was on there. Early on in this case, people were saying that they did that to humiliate her and put the car seat on top of her belly and so forth. But I think it was a matter of just space. They had Matthew in the back, deceased, shot in the head, and they needed to lay him down so they could drive the car, So car seat's back there. They just got rid of it, and they just put it up in the front. So it could be the most logical explanation. So thank you for coming in here, and thank you for being brave and joining Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank
Y'all
you.
too. Thank you.
All right, there she goes. All right, Ed, let's rock and roll. Again, this is our continuing coverage of this case. We're going to follow it as it develops. If there's more charges, if there's anything that develops, if you have any tips or any information, DutyRon.com, any new cases that you might want us to follow, we want you to be interactive with us. Thank you to the moderators. Thank you to the replay viewers. All the folks who gave super chats, I'm going to try to highlight some of them really quick and go through them. Their sister, Carol Ann Clark, I read that one out. Schmitty was making fun of me. Member for 26 months. Toot toot. Amber Gloria, who was on here with us, I believe. She sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you for that. Schmitty's making fun of me. I proposed that both of their pictures be displayed. Then DutyRon hits the you know what button. That was just, I didn't even see that, but that just happened. Timing. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. And Allison sends in $10. Our favorite fangirl. She's here hanging out with us. E.L. Harley sends in a $5 super chat. What time did the victims arrive at Charlie Chan residence? We read out the whole affidavit. And some people just, no matter how it's read, how it's spelled out, some people, it won't make sense to them.
It's in the affidavit. The movement of the vehicle is there. It was only there for 4 minutes at Charlie Chan.
There you go. And Shelly Nip, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. That concludes our coverage for tonight, an hour and 40 minutes. It was because of people. A lot of people came in. Thank you. Thank you for the interaction. We love it. We appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe for more videos from Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Ed, I know you always have something to say at the end of the show.
Well, actually, I got a couple of things to say. A little different. Folks, if you see anybody utilizing our content without proper citation to us or accreditation to us, please contact us at DutyRon.com and let us know where you saw it, who's doing it, because we're finding out there that people are using our content. I mean, verbatim, they're just taking our whole show and putting it on their show, and without attributing it to us. So if you see that, just let us know. And so again, folks, always stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
And again, to expand on what Ed said, I didn't plan to even talk about that, but it's just a simple common courtesy. If you're going to use clips or little pieces of what we speak about, especially when Ed's given an education, don't use it like it's your content. Use it like, hey, I'm sharing this from Crime Time with DutyRon. Here's the link to that video. Go watch the full video. Subscribe to the channel. If you do that, we're cool with it. We don't mind. If you do it in a sneaky way where you're making it seem like it's your content, that's a O.
Oh, hell no.
So thank you for that. Hey guys, I want to just send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the victims, their families, especially who are left behind, and all of the community in San Antonio, the police, the district attorney's office, who are now taxed with the burden of proof in this case. We're sending, again, the EMS and the paramedics and everyone who had to deal with this horrific crime scene. And please, if you don't have something nice to say as it pertains to the family, hold off. They haven't even buried their loved ones yet. So give them a little slack. I'm not saying that, down the road a conversation can be had, but give them some space. That's all I'm saying, folks. Be kind, because if it was happening to you, God forbid, you wouldn't want a band of people coming at you or coming at your loved ones before you put them in the ground and you had a chance to bury them. So good night from New York City. On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we say thank you, and thank you for being here. We'll talk soon. Peace.